you're doing is good for kids, but it doesn't mean I don't think you care about kids. I just think you're wrong on the policy. And so maybe if we can get away from questioning each other's motives, we can start to get back to a level of collegiality that maybe we can focus on policies. But it is 2026, folks. It is not 2023. It is not 2024. Joe Biden doesn't matter, okay? It's what matters today is what's...
Welcome back to Freedom Forge, the channel where we break down the biggest political battles shaping America today from a patriotic America first perspective. If you believe in free speech, constitutional government, accountability, and putting American citizens first, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because the mainstream media is not going to tell you what's really happening in Washington. Today, we are reacting to a heated congressional budget hearing that turned into a full-on clash over executive power, federal spending, government accountability, and the future direction of the country. Democrat Congressman Scott Peters went after the Trump administration over allegations that the administration delayed or withheld congressionally approved funding without formally notifying Congress. The hearing also exploded into arguments about the Government Accountability Office, spending priorities, fraud investigations, political division, and whether both parties can still work together without treating each other like enemies.
Give 5 minutes to my colleague, Mr. Scott Peters from California.
Thank you. Director, thank you for being here today. The Impoundment Control Act of 1974 says that the executive cannot unilaterally withhold congressionally appropriated funds without a rescission or deferral request submitted to Congress. Director, has OMB withheld or delayed the obligation of funds appropriated by this Congress without submitting rescission or deferral notices?
We have fully complied with the Impoundment Control Act. As you probably know, we are not fans of the Impoundment Control Act. We think it's unconstitutional. The president ran against it.
Okay, but you can
However,
answer
we
the
have
question.
complied with it.
Did you withhold congressionally appropriated funds without a rescission or deferral request submitted to Congress? That's yes, right?
Not in violation of the Impoundment Control Act. We have.
Did you ever submit
we've done
rescission
programmatic
or
reviews of various programs
Did you ever
across
submit
the government.
rescission or deferral requests to Congress? Have you
We
submitted
submitted a rescissions package last year, and actually two. We continue to do programmatic reviews
to Congress
of programs. That is not a withholding under the Impoundment Control
Did you
Act.
submit it to Congress?
We don't need to submit. If
you
we're,
did not.
Congressman, if we're just assessing a program for waste, fraud, and abuse.
I understand you don't think you have to, but I'm just trying to establish you did not, right? You did not.
Well,
correct?
we submitted rescissions bills to Congress last year.
Okay,
2 of them.
but not deferral notices that you were withholding.
They're not deferrals under the Impoundment Control Act.
Okay. The Government Accountability Office has already found that the administration illegally withheld nearly $8 billion in NIH grants, $7 billion for funding to support K-12 public schools nationwide, and hundreds of millions of dollars for Head Start programs across the country. Do you dispute GAO's findings?
Yes. GAO is typically wrong. They're very partisan. They are typically on the exact opposite of wherever the Trump administration is. Unfortunately, I know you all look to them. They are a branch of the legislative body. We have a very different view with regard to the merit of their opinions, and so it's not surprising me that they have a different view on that.
Do you have a legal opinion on that?
We defend to the hilt all of our legal decisions. Most of the time, with regard to GAO, we don't have to do this.
Have you gotten a formal legal opinion on that?
Actually, most of the time, we will put out from OMB a defense in response of any of the GAO. Not always, but we try to be very forward-leaning and articulate because we feel like we have the moral and legal high ground every time we make a decision.
I'm sure you feel like you have the moral and legal high ground. I get that impression. I would just ask Mr. Chairman, for the record, that we add, without objection, we add the decision from GAO of August 5 and July 23 on Head Start and NIH impoundment.
Without objection, so ordered.
You know, I understand that the GAO's part of the government you don't like. We don't get to decide what parts of the government we follow and we don't. We have laws that are there for a reason, and I guess we should expect that you would abide by those procedures. But you know, whether it's tariffs or the war or the way you've manipulated the budget, the administration just does not want to deal with Congress. And I have to say to my colleagues in general that we've reached a point where if something's not going well in this administration, the response is not, let's do something different. The response is, well, Biden did it worse. It is absolutely irrelevant. Joe Biden is gone. You guys won that election. We don't dispute the results of elections. You won the election. Joe Biden's gone. Our job is today, what do we do in 2026 to make things better? And this budget will not meet that 3% target that we set without aggressive growth assumptions, which I don't think we're going to see. But why are we talking about Joe Biden? Joe Biden's been gone for 2 years. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The other thing I'd suggest is, one of my colleagues, Mr. Smucker, said Democrats don't care about fraud. And I just want to just call that out a little bit, because if Mr. Smucker and I sat down together, I think we could have a discussion about fraud. I think we do care about fraud. We want to know what's real fraud and what's not real fraud. But I ask you not to question my motives. Don't say that. I will pledge to you that I will bash your policies. I think you guys are wrong. I think you're wrong, but I don't question your motives. I think everyone in this room is a patriot that wants to do the right thing for the country. And when we make each other our enemies, the Democrats versus the Republicans, this is the weakest that we can create, the weakest situation we can create for this country. When we are really not thinking of ourselves as colleagues, but as enemies who don't care about stuff, I think that's really something we should stay away from. And I think I'm sort of least worried about Mr. Smucker because he's a friend. I know him, but I hear this all the time. Let's not question each other's motives. I think you guys are really wrong on the policy. I don't think that what you're doing is good for kids, but it doesn't mean I don't think you care about kids. I just think you're wrong on the policy. And so maybe if we can get away from questioning each other's motives, we can start to get back to a level of collegiality that maybe we can focus on policies. But it is 2026, folks. It is not 2023. It is not 2024. Joe Biden doesn't matter, okay? It's what matters today is what's going on today. What is this budget committee's job? We are not getting to the 3% target we all agreed to a few weeks ago from the gate. And I just want to say that we have a lot of work to do, but
Well, the gentleman is making, some fair and fine remarks, and I have the utmost respect.
Sorry, I went
for him.
over.
Well, we're over time. I do think that Mr. Smucker's comments were intended to be on record, contrasting on record, not on motive. However that came out, I believe it was about the record, not the motive. But I appreciate your comments. Let's move.
Saying we don't care about something is a personal attack.
And let me tell you something right now. This hearing perfectly captures the political war happening in America today. On one side, you got establishment politicians and bureaucratic agencies trying to preserve the old system. On the other side, you've got an administration that came into office promising to challenge that system, cut waste, review spending, and stop the endless flow of taxpayer dollars into programs that many Americans believe are bloated, ineffective, or outright political. Now, one thing I want to say before we even dive into this. I actually respect that Congressman Peters tried to calm down the rhetoric near the end of the hearing. He said Republicans and Democrats shouldn't question each other's motives and shouldn't act like enemies. Honestly, that's one of the few things said during this hearing that I think most Americans can agree with. But at the same time, unity does not mean surrendering conservative principles. Unity does not mean Republicans stop fighting against wasteful spending, unelected bureaucrats, or unconstitutional overreach. We can disagree strongly without pretending there are no real policy consequences. The hearing starts with Peters bringing up the Impoundment Control Act of 1974. He argues that the executive branch cannot withhold congressionally approved funds without formally notifying Congress through rescission or deferral requests. In simple terms, Congress approves the money, and the administration is supposed to spend it unless specific procedures are followed. Now here's where things get interesting. The administration official responds by saying they complied with the law, but then also says they believe the law itself is unconstitutional. That right there is the heart of the conflict. Conservatives have argued for years that Congress passes massive spending bills packed with waste, corruption, and ideological projects, then expects the executive branch to blindly spend every dollar regardless of whether it benefits the country. And honestly, a lot of Americans are tired of that. The Trump movement was built on challenging the permanent political class. It was built on questioning why taxpayers keep funding programs that fail year after year, while inflation crushes working families, cities become less safe, and a national debt explodes into the stratosphere. Peters tries to corner the administration official by repeatedly asking whether funds were withheld without formal notices to Congress. But what stood out to me was the administration's answer that they were conducting programmatic reviews. Translation? They were reviewing whether these programs deserve the money in the first place. And let's be honest here. Why shouldn't taxpayers want reviews? Why should billions of dollars automatically flow through Washington without scrutiny? Why should Americans trust agencies that have repeatedly wasted taxpayer money for decades? The congressman then cites Government Accountability Office findings claiming the administration illegally withheld billions in NIH grants, education funding, and Head Start funding. But then the administration official fires back and says something that absolutely triggered the room. He says the GAO is often partisan and usually lands on the opposite side of the Trump administration. Now, that statement right there is going to outrage establishment Washington, but many conservatives watching this probably nodded their heads because there is a growing distrust of federal institutions across the board. And let's be honest again, whether it's intelligence agencies, federal prosecutors, or bureaucratic watchdog groups, a huge percentage of Americans no longer believe these institutions operate neutrally. They see political bias everywhere. They see two standards of justice. They see selective outrage depending on which party is in power. Now, does that mean every institution is corrupt? No. But pretending Americans have no reason to distrust these agencies after everything we've seen over the last decade is just ridiculous. What I found especially revealing was when the administration officials said they believe they have the moral and legal high ground every time we make a decision. That statement perfectly captures the confidence of this administration's approach. They're not acting defensively anymore. This is not the old Republican Party that apologizes every 5 minutes because CNN gets angry. This administration clearly believes voters gave them a mandate to aggressively challenge the federal system. And here's the reality Democrats don't want to admit. Millions of Americans voted specifically for disruption. They voted for somebody willing to bulldoze through the bureaucracy because they believe the bureaucracy itself has become too powerful. Now Peters then shifts into broader criticism. He says the administration doesn't want to deal with Congress on tariffs, war powers, or the budget process. He argues that Republicans keep bringing up Joe Biden instead of focusing on current problems. And honestly, I partially understand his frustration there. Republicans can't just say Biden was worse forever. At some point, every administration owns its results. That's true. But here's where I think Peters misses the bigger point. Conservatives bring up Biden because many of today's economic and institutional problems didn't appear overnight. Americans are still living with the consequences of years of inflation, reckless spending, border chaos, energy restrictions, and massive government expansion. Those policies didn't vanish the moment Biden left office. So yes, people are still going to compare administrations because voters compare results. Were groceries cheaper? Was housing more affordable? Did Americans feel safer? Did the world look more stable? Did the border feel controlled? Those are real questions voters ask every single day. Then the hearing takes another turn when Peters responds to comments suggesting Democrats don't care about fraud. This is actually one of the more important moments in the entire exchange because it reveals the deeper problem in American politics right now. Peters says Republicans should criticize policies instead of questioning motives. He says Democrats care about fraud too, but they may disagree on what constitutes real fraud. And again, fair point. But conservatives also have legitimate reasons to believe fraud, abuse, and waste have become systemic inside government spending. Americans have watched trillions disappear into programs with little accountability while ordinary citizens struggle to pay rent and buy groceries. That frustration is real. And I think this is where the populist conservative movement gains strength. It taps into the feeling that ordinary taxpayers are funding a giant machine that never shrinks, never reforms, and never admits failure. The congressman says everyone in the room is a patriot trying to do the right thing. I want to believe that. I really do. But patriotism is not just about intentions. Patriotism is also about results. If policies weaken the economy, increase dependence on government, undermine national sovereignty, or saddle future generations with crushing debt, conservatives are going to fight those policies aggressively. And they should. What stood out to me most in this hearing is that we are witnessing two completely different visions of America colliding in real time. One side believes government institutions should largely be trusted and protected. The other side believes those institutions have grown too powerful, too political, too wasteful, and too disconnected from ordinary Americans. That's the real fight happening here. Not just Democrats versus Republicans. It's establishment control versus populist rebellion. It's centralized bureaucracy versus accountability. It's the old Washington model versus a movement trying to tear that model apart. And whether you love Trump or hate him, there's no denying one thing. He changed the Republican Party permanently. Republicans today are far more willing to challenge federal agencies, question spending authority, confront bureaucrats, and reject the old trust the institutions mindset. This hearing showed that transformation perfectly. Now I want to hear from you guys. Do you think the administration was right to review or delay spending programs they believed were wasteful or unconstitutional? Or do you think Congress alone should control every dollar once it's approved? And do you think federal watchdog agencies like the GAO are neutral referees, or have they become politically biased over time? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this debate is only getting bigger as America heads deeper into another explosive election cycle. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more uncensored political reactions, Senate hearing analysis, and America First commentary, make sure you like this video, subscribe to Freedom Forge, and share this with someone who's tired of the mainstream media spin. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.